The 1980s weren't all neon lights and synthesizers. Beneath the surface of MTV's glossy veneer lurks some of the most disturbing, haunting rock songs ever recorded. Tonight, we're diving into the shadows to explore 10 tracks that prove the decade had a very dark side.
Talk about sugar on the sitting knees. Conversations about the holes in your head.
Plus, we'll reveal a bonus track so twisted, it nearly destroyed the band that recorded it. Number 10. A British heavy metal band that had already pushed boundaries with their leather and studs image decides to cross a line that even their most devoted fans found shocking. Their then new track features lyrics so explicitly violent and predatory that it would spark congressional hearings and become a rallying cry for music censorship advocates across America. Judas Priest, Eat Me Alive, 1984. From their 1984 album Defenders of the Faith, this track caused massive controversy for its graphic sexual violence imagery. Rob Halford's vocals describe predatory behavior in explicit detail, while the twin guitar attack of Glenn Tipton and KK Downing creates a musical backdrop that feels threatening. The song's lyrics were so disturbing that it became one of the filthy 15 tracks targeted by the PMRC. The musical arrangement matches the lyrical brutality, with pounding drums from Dave Holland and a bass line that feels like a stalking predator. Halford's vocal delivery shifts between whispered threats and full-throated screams, creating a performance that feels genuinely dangerous. The song's structure builds tension methodically, like a hunter closing in on its prey. What made Eat Me Alive distinctly controversial was its timing, arriving just as concerns about rock music's influence on youth were reaching fever pitch. The song became a lightning rod for censorship debates, with critics arguing that it promoted sexual violence. Judas Priest defended it as theatrical, but the graphic nature of the lyrics made it impossible to dismiss as harmless entertainment. Number 9. Picture a band known for their theatrical shock rock, but this time they've crafted something that goes beyond mere stage antics. The song opens with an eerie music box melody before descending into a nightmare about childhood innocence corrupted. Even their most devoted fans found this one disturbing. Alice Cooper, For Veronica's Sake, 1981. From Alice Cooper's 1981 album, Special Forces, this track stands as one of his most psychologically disturbing compositions. The song tells the story of a man's obsession with a young girl named Veronica, blending Cooper's trademark theatrical horror with unsettling psychological themes. Unlike his earlier shock rock anthems that were clearly theatrical, For Veronica's Sake felt uncomfortably real. The musical arrangement mirrors the lyrical content's descent into madness. It begins with a delicate, almost innocent piano melody that gradually becomes corrupted by distorted guitars and Cooper's increasingly unhinged vocal delivery. The production, handled by Roy Thomas Baker, creates an atmosphere of claustrophobia that makes listeners feel trapped inside the narrator's twisted mind. What made this song especially dark for 1981 audiences was its exploration of themes that mainstream rock rarely touched. While Cooper had always pushed boundaries, this track crossed into territory that felt menacing rather than entertainingly shocking. Radio stations were reluctant to play it, and even MTV, in its early days, avoided the song entirely. Cooper himself later admitted that the song made even him uncomfortable, which says something about an artist who built his career on disturbing imagery. Number 8. A post-punk band known for their icy atmospheric sound decides to embrace the spirit of All Hallows Eve with their most chilling creation yet. Their frontwoman's haunting vocals tell a tale of supernatural terror, while the band crafts a musical landscape that feels like wandering through a haunted house where every shadow hides something sinister. Susie and the Banshees, Halloween, 1981. From their 1981 album Juju, this track finds Susie and the Banshees at their most frightening. Susie Sue's vocals weave a spell of gothic horror, describing scenes of supernatural dread with a delivery that's both seductive and terrifying. The band creates a musical setting that perfectly captures the essence of Halloween night. Mysterious and filled with ancient fears. The musical arrangement is built around John McGeoch's guitar work, which creates textures that seem to crawl and slither through the darkness. Steven Severin's bass provides a foundation that feels unstable, as if the ground itself might give way at any moment. Budgie's drumming maintains rhythms that feel like footsteps in an empty house, while Susie's vocal delivery suggests someone who has seen things that mortal minds weren't meant to comprehend. What made Halloween most effective was its complete commitment to creating genuine experience, rather than relying on shock tactics. The song doesn't just reference horror, it embodies it, creating a listening experience that is terrifying. The track became a template for gothic rock, showing how post-punk could embrace darkness without losing its artistic sophistication. Number 7. A progressive rock band known for their complex compositions and philosophical lyrics takes a sharp turn into horror territory. Their latest track, At the Time, featured a protagonist trapped in a nightmare where reality and delusion blurred together. The song's structure mirrors its subject matter, disjointed, unsettling, and impossible to predict. King Crimson, Indiscipline, 1981. From their 1981 album Discipline, this track represents King Crimson at their most psychologically disturbing. Adrian Belew's vocals shift between conversational and completely unhinged as he portrays a man losing his grip on reality. The lyrics, delivered in a stream of consciousness style, detail paranoid thoughts and violent impulses that feel unsafe. The musical arrangement is equally unsettling. Robert Fripp's guitar work creates dissonant textures that seem to crawl under the skin, while Tony Levin's bass and Bill Bruford's drums establish rhythms that constantly shift and change, preventing listeners from finding any comfortable groove.
I repeat myself when under stress. I repeat myself when under stress. I repeat myself when under stress.
The song's structure defies conventional rock songwriting, with sections that appear and disappear without warning, much like the thoughts of someone experiencing a mental breakdown. What made Indiscipline disturbing was its clinical approach to madness. Unlike other rock songs that romanticized mental illness or treated it as a metaphor, King Crimson presented it as a stark, frightening reality. The song's 7-minute runtime allows the madness to build gradually, drawing listeners into the narrator's deteriorating mental state. Progressive rock fans, accustomed to the band's intellectual approach, found themselves confronted with something that felt genuinely threatening rather than merely challenging.
The more I look at it, the more I like it.
Number 6. A British heavy metal band that had already established themselves as masters of epic storytelling decides to explore the final moments of a condemned man. Their track follows a prisoner facing execution, and the music builds from quiet desperation to thunderous acceptance as the protagonist confronts his mortality and the possibility of damnation. Iron Maiden, Hallowed Be Thy Name, 1982. From their 1982 album, The Number of the Beast, this track represents Iron Maiden at their most psychologically complex. Bruce Dickinson's vocals follow a condemned man through his final hours, exploring themes of mortality, redemption, and the fear of the unknown. The song's narrative structure allows the band to build tension methodically, creating one of metal's most emotionally powerful experiences. The musical arrangement mirrors the protagonist's emotional journey, beginning with quiet, contemplative passages that gradually build to explosive climaxes. Dave Murray and Adrian Smith's guitar work creates both beautiful melodies and crushing power, while Steve Harris's bass provides a foundation that feels like the steady march of time. Nico McBrain's drumming builds from gentle rhythms to thunderous crescendos that suggest the weight of final judgment. What made Hallowed Be Thy Name dark was its unflinching examination of mortality and spiritual uncertainty. The song doesn't offer easy answers about death or redemption. Instead, it presents a man grappling with the ultimate questions of existence in his final moments. The track's 8-minute runtime allows Iron Maiden to explore every aspect of this existential crisis, creating a musical experience that confronts listeners with their own mortality while delivering some of the most powerful music in metal history. Number 5. A band emerges from the post-punk underground with a sound that's equal parts hypnotic and horrifying. Their frontman's deep, commanding voice tells stories of murder, obsession, and religious fanaticism. This particular song chronicles a man's descent into violence justified by his twisted interpretation of divine will. The Birthday Party, Release the Bats, 1981. Led by the magnetic and terrifying Nick Cave, The Birthday Party created some of the most disturbing rock music of the early 1980s. Release the Bats stands as their masterpiece of controlled chaos, a song that feels like it could collapse into violence at any moment. Cave's vocals shift between whispered confessions and full-throated screams, while the band creates a musical backdrop that sounds like a nightmare come to life. The song's lyrics are deliberately obscure, but they paint a picture of religious mania and sexual violence that feels wicked. Cave's delivery suggests a preacher who has lost his mind, using biblical imagery to justify unspeakable acts. The music matches this intensity, with Mick Harvey's drums pounding like a heartbeat under stress, and Tracy Pugh's bass creating a foundation that seems to shift and buckle under the weight of the song's darkness. What made The Birthday Party so chilling was their complete commitment to their dark vision. Unlike bands that used horror imagery for shock value, Cave and his collaborators seemed to inhabit the twisted world they created. Live performances were legendary for their intensity, with Cave often injuring himself and others in his fervor. Release the Bats captured this dangerous energy, creating a recording that felt like a document of actual madness rather than mere performance. Number 4. A California thrash metal band that had been building a reputation in the underground suddenly unleashes their most brutal and blasphemous statement. This track tells the story of a divine messenger's violent demise, delivered with such ferocity and sacrilegious imagery that it sent shockwaves through both the metal community and religious groups across America. Slayer, Angel of Death, 1986. From their landmark 1986 album, Rain and Blood, this track represents Slayer at their most extreme and controversial. Jeff Hanneman's lyrics detail the horrific medical experiments conducted by Nazi doctor Josef Mengele, while the band's musical assault creates a feeling of pure brutality. Tom Araya's vocals shift between whispered descriptions and full-throated screams, while Kerry King and Hanneman's guitar work creates a wall of sound that feels like an actual assault. The song's opening scream is one of the most terrifying moments in metal history, followed by a relentless barrage of riffs that never lets up. Dave Lombardo's drumming pounds like machine gun fire, while the overall production creates a sense of chaos and violence that mirrors the lyrical content. The track's structure builds from ominous beginnings to crushing climaxes that suggest the weight of historical horror. What made Angel of Death uniquely disturbing was its unflinching examination of real-world evil. Unlike other metal songs that dealt with fantasy horror, this track confronted actual historical atrocities with graphic detail. The song sparked accusations of Nazi sympathy, though the band maintained they were simply documenting historical facts. The controversy followed Slayer throughout their career, making Angel of Death one of the most debated songs in metal history. Number 3. A British gothic rock band that had already established themselves as masters of dark atmospheres decides to explore the intersection of religious ecstasy and physical suffering. Their latest creation examines the thin line between spiritual transcendence and masochistic obsession, creating a musical experience that feels like witnessing a sacred ritual gone horribly wrong. Bauhaus, Stigmata Martyr, 1982. From their 1982 album, Burning from the Inside, this track finds Bauhaus exploring religious imagery through their signature lens of gothic horror. Peter Murphy's vocals describe the experience of receiving the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, but presented as both divine blessing and physical torment. The band creates a musical backdrop that feels like a cathedral filled with shadows and whispered prayers. The musical arrangement builds from quiet, reverent beginnings to crushing climaxes that suggest the weight of divine suffering. Daniel Ash's guitar work creates textures that are both beautiful and threatening, while David J's bass provides a foundation that seems to shift between sacred and profane. Kevin Haskins' drumming maintains rhythms that feel like both heartbeat and funeral march, while Murphy's vocal delivery suggests a man caught between ecstasy and agony. What made Stigmata Martyr particularly unnerving was its treatment of religious themes through a lens of physical and psychological horror. The song suggested that spiritual transcendence might be indistinguishable from madness, and that divine experience could be as terrifying as it was transformative. This exploration of religious ecstasy as horror felt especially provocative in the early 1980s, as traditional religious values were being questioned and redefined. Number 2. An American band that had spent years perfecting their heavy metal sound suddenly embraces a more theatrical approach. Their new concept album tells the story of a young man's transformation from innocent victim to calculating killer, and this particular track serves as his manifesto, a chilling declaration of intent that left audiences questioning the nature of evil itself. Queensrÿche, Sweet Sister Mary, 1988. From their groundbreaking concept album, Operation Mindcrime, this track represents Queensrÿche at their darkest and most sophisticated. The song follows the character Nicky as he becomes involved with a corrupt priest and a drug-addicted nun, leading to murder and betrayal. Jeff Tate's vocals convey both innocence and corruption, while the band creates a musical backdrop that feels like a descent into hell. The song's structure mirrors its narrative complexity, with multiple sections that represent different aspects of the story. Chris DeGarmo's guitar work creates both beautiful melodies and harsh dissonance, reflecting the contrast between religious imagery and violent reality. The rhythm section of Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockenfield provides a foundation that shifts between gentle and brutal, matching the song's emotional extremes. What made Sweet Sister Mary unsettling was its exploration of institutional corruption. The song suggests that evil often wears the mask of righteousness, and that those who claim to serve God may be serving darker masters. This theme resonated strongly in the late 1980s as various scandals rocked religious institutions. The song's 10-minute runtime allows Queensrÿche to explore every aspect of this corruption, creating a musical experience that feels like a journey through moral darkness. Number 1. A British post-punk band that had spent years perfecting their atmospheric sound creates their most apocalyptic vision yet. Their latest track presents a world where time itself has become meaningless, where humanity has endured so long that existence has become a form of torture, and where the only escape is the final dissolution of everything. The Cure, 100 Years, 1982. From their 1982 album Pornography, this track represents The Cure at their most nihilistic and despairing. Robert Smith's vocals describe a world where time has stretched beyond all meaning, where 100 years feels like an eternity of suffering. The song's lyrics paint a picture of existence as endless repetition and decay, while the band creates a musical backdrop that feels like the sound of civilization collapsing. The musical arrangement is deliberately oppressive, with guitars that create walls of distortion and a rhythm section that pounds like a dying heartbeat. Smith's vocals are buried in the mix, suggesting a voice calling out from the depths of despair. The song's structure avoids traditional verse-chorus patterns, instead creating a continuous flow of sound that mirrors the endless passage of time described in the lyrics. What made 100 Years the darkest song of the 1980s was its complete rejection of hope or redemption. Unlike other dark songs that offered some possibility of escape or transcendence, this track presented existence as fundamentally meaningless and painful. The song's 8-minute runtime allows The Cure to explore every aspect of this existential horror, creating a musical experience that feels like a journey through the darkest corners of human consciousness. The track's influence on alternative rock was profound, showing that popular music could confront the most fundamental questions about existence and meaning. Bonus track. Few tracks in rock history capture despair and obsession so vividly. From the opening notes, this song drags listeners into a shadowy world where love, death, and madness intertwine, leaving a haunting impression that refuses to fade. Christian Death, Romeo's Distress, 1982.
Talk about sugar on the sitting knees. Conversations about the holes in your head.
This track from the godfathers of American Gothic rock pushed boundaries so far that it nearly destroyed the band. Roz Williams' vocals swirl between anguished wails and whispering confessions, embodying a love affair with death itself. The guitars and bass create jagged, disquieting textures that crawl under the skin, while the sparse, driving percussion gives the song a tense, almost ritualistic momentum. The song's structure moves in waves of quiet menace and explosive intensity, amplifying the sense of psychological torment. Romeo's Distress was banned from most radio stations and caused several band members to quit, unable to handle the weight of performing it night after night. It remains one of the most disturbing rock songs ever recorded, a testament to the power of music to explore humanity's darkest impulses.
Who's out walking in the shadows? Who's out walking in the streets?
The 80s had a dark side few remember, but the roots of that darkness stretch back to the 60s and 70s. Dive into those shadows next with our other videos.